Hi there everyone, we are in day 5 of phonics and today we're going to be talking about consonants. So far in class we've discussed phonemic awareness and alphabet knowledge, and now we're moving into the intersection of those two things where you connect the letters that we see in our written language, the graphemes, to the sounds that we hear in our spoken language, the phonemes. And consonants are a good place to begin that, primarily because consonants typically have one sound, one primary sound that is used. Some consonants have two sounds, like G has a soft sound, J, J, and a hard sound, G, G. But in most cases, a consonant is primarily represented by one sound. So it's a nice place for children to start as they're thinking about the sounds that letters make. We're going to go ahead and discuss a lot about these today in this screencast. A little bit of an overview for today. You should have read readings from Blevins, Savage, and Dow and Bear to prepare for this screencast. Those are all the assigned readings in your syllabus, in your course schedule. You'll do this screencast and engage in the content, and then you'll have one activity, just one for today, about the importance of using a particular kind of consonant and teaching a particular kind of consonant for children as they read and write. And then you have your quiz to take on Moodle under today's content. So that's what you're looking at before we have our next class. Consonants. This is a big, long definition of consonants, but it's important to start as we begin to think about what we're saying a consonant actually is. We all know the names of consonants, but what does that mean? Why are those letters consonants versus being called vowels? So here's our big, long definition. Consonant phonemes, or consonant sounds, are made when there is maximum closure or interference with the column of air as it passes through the vocal tract. We completely block the column of air and then release it, as in b, b, b. See how I'm completely blocking the air as it travels through, as in the sound b, b for bat. Or sometimes in a consonant phoneme, we force the sound through a small opening, as in s, like in sat. So we give a little tiny opening to make that sound. Or we redirect the column of air through the nasal cavity, like in mat. So my mouth is completely closed. The sound is now coming out through my nose. I bet you've never thought about it quite like that before. You might let the stream of air flow around an obstruction, as in oh, oh. So there's an obstruction right here, and the air is flowing around it, like in lap, or you otherwise interfere with that column of air in some other way as it passes from your larynx to the outside world. That's a consonant. You are obstructing the sound as it comes out in order to make a different phoneme, a different sound. So we're going to talk about consonants throughout this class in all of the weeks that we are here together, all of the days we're here together. When we represent a consonant, when we are writing out patterns of consonants in a word, it's important to know that we'll represent that consonant with a C, a vowel with a V, and a consonant, again, with a C. If this was a CVC word, like the word lap, consonant, vowel, consonant, we might use this representation to make sure that we can see patterns of consonants and vowels together. That's just a little side note for the rest of the semester. Remember that 25 of the 44 phonemes in the English language are represented by consonants. So there are 44 phonemes, 44 sounds in the English language. 25 of those sounds are sounds made by consonants. Savage and Blevins have comprehensive charts with these in them, and I also gave you a phoneme chart in class that you can look at to help you with this. But we know there aren't 25 consonants. That means that some consonants, like I said earlier, some consonants like G or C have two sounds that they make. So we know that to be true, and we know that even though most consonants only have one sound, one primary sound, they may make a secondary other sound as well. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of ways that we can think about consonants. And if you are in the privacy of your room, or if no one will hear you, or if you don't care if anyone hears you, you can do this with me. One of the ways that we can categorize consonants is by either saying they are a voiced consonant or an unvoiced consonant. A voiced consonant produces a sound and your vocal cords vibrate when you say that voiced consonant. So if you put your hand right here on your throat and you say b, 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 you can hear your vocal cord vibrating. Or you can say w, w, w. You don't hear it, you feel your vocal cord vibrating. If you say that's a voiced consonant because your vocal cord vibrates. If you're doing an unvoiced consonant, there is no vibration. So that would be for a consonant like t, t, t. If you put your hand on your vocal cords and you say t, 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 you'll feel there's no vibration. Same thing for the sound that the letter K makes. K, k, k. No vibration. It's an unvoiced consonant. So that's one way that we can categorize consonant letters with kids. We can help them to hear that some of them have a voice, like w, w, and some of them are unvoiced, like t, t, t. Another way, a second way, that we can categorize consonants is by their manner of articulation. And you can find this information in Blevins on page 27. So this is going to require some demonstration from me. And again, you can do this on your own if you are in a place where you're comfortable to do so. But I will give you the definitions of each of these manners of articulation, and then I'll also demonstrate them for you. So we have something called plosives when we talk about consonants, and that's when you close or block the airflow and then there's a puff of air. So that would be b, 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 or p, p, p. All right, one of those was voiced and one of them was unvoiced, but both of them were plosives because there's a closing or blocking of airflow and then a puff of air that follows. B, b. We have something called a fricative when we are categorizing the manner of articulation with consonants. That's when you narrow your air channel and you force the air through it. So you narrow it, or so I narrowed it, and if you do that with me, you can feel the narrowing. That's called a fricative. We have a nasal when we are categorizing consonants, and you can imagine that's when we force the air through our nasal passage, like when we say or n. In both of those cases, we're forcing the air and the sound through our nasal passages. We have something called a liquid consonant. That's when you interrupt the airflow slightly, but there's no friction there. So I'm not actually closing my mouth completely, like, oh, there's still a little bit open, or So you're interrupting the airflow by moving your mouth in a certain way, but it's not interrupted completely. That's a liquid. And then we have a glide. That's our final manner of articulation with consonants. We call these semivowels. They're formed in similar ways as vowels. So even though these are consonants, a glide is a little bit more similar to a vowel because of the way we are forming our mouth, like w, 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 and y, 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 and h, h, h. All right, we'll talk about that more in class if you have questions about that. But these are all manners of articulation. That's another way that we can classify or categorize consonants. So first we had voiced or unvoiced. Now we have the manner of articulation. And finally, we have something called the place of articulation. So this is where the sound actually comes out of your mouth, and this is Blevins, page 28, if you want more information. Here's how we categorize the place of articulation. It might come from your lips, like in b, b, or p, p. The most important piece of that place of articulation was where your lips came together to say b, b, or p, p. We have the front of the mouth articulation, like d, d, s, z. If you do those sounds, if you're in a place where you can make them with me, you'll feel it's the front of your mouth that makes the articulation happen. That's the place of articulation. Then we have the back of mouth articulation. If you say g, 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 or k, 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 you'll feel that it's happening in the back of your mouth. That's the place of articulation. We have articulation through the lips and the teeth, like v. My lips and my teeth came together to make that sound. That was the place of articulation. Or f, same thing, lips and teeth. Then we have just your teeth that are primarily doing it, like th, th, th. All right, that's a digraph, a consonant digraph, and that is when the T and the H came together to make a completely new sound, and that's using your teeth to do that. Then we have the roof of our mouth, where we make an articulation. That's the place. So if you say j, j, or sh, you can feel that you're moving towards the roof of your mouth to make those sounds. So we had voiced and unvoiced. We had the manner of articulation, and now here's the place in our mouth where the articulation happens. It's another way to categorize consonants. All right, so those are the ways we categorize consonants. Now we can talk a little bit about how consonants can come together to either blend their sounds or make a completely new sound. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is blending sounds. When you have two consonants that come together, but you still hear both sounds. That's called a consonant blend. When we say it out loud, we just call it a consonant blend. That's when we hear the sounds of the blend. When we write the two consonants that come together, we call them consonant clusters. Okay, so the written form of this is a cluster. The sound that it makes is called a blend. So these are blends with L, like bull, coal, full, soul, pole. You hear both sounds, but they're right together, so they blend together. Or if we're looking at the written form, they cluster together. We have blends or clusters with R, burr, cur, der, fur, gur, per, ter. We have consonant blends and clusters with an S in them. Sk, sk, sol, sm, sn, sp, st, sw. All right, so we have all of those, and in this case, the letter that is common in all of the blends or clusters is at the beginning. The S is at the beginning of those clusters. And then we have three-letter blends where three consonants come together to blend. Stir, spur, spole. Okay, you can probably think of words that have these blends, these clusters in them. But remember, you hear every sound in the blend, in the cluster. Digraphs are different because a consonant digraph is when two letters, two consonants come together, the two graphemes, but they make a completely new phoneme that is different than what those two letters would say one after the other with their primary sound. For instance, CH doesn't say k, it says ch, ch, like in chair. Sh, like wish. Remember, this is unvoiced. It's not the, it's th. Thick. This one is different though, because sometimes TH is voiced. And when it's voiced, so we hear th, we have TH is voiced and we make the T and the H within the brackets capital. Then, the. All right, do you hear that difference? Then, thick, then, thick. That's slightly different. Then we have the HW. This is a little bit different than you might pronounce it, but it's supposed to sound like which, which. So you have WH together, and it almost switches places if you say it properly. Which. And then NG, ng. That's almost like a blend, but we really call it a digraph because it slightly changes the sound. Sing, sing. Okay, those are digraphs. New sound when those letters come together. You only have one activity for this week. I want you to think about those consonant digraphs on the previous slide, or you could go to your text for this week where you read about these digraphs. And think about how important they are in learning how to read and write words. So with this in mind, why is it really important for you to know and then teach children consonant digraphs? How will it support and assist their reading and writing development? Why do you need to teach this? After you do that activity, come on back and we'll review on the last slide. All right, so here we are on the final slide of our presentation. You remember that you should have read from Blevins, Savage, and Dow and Bear. You are on this screencast and you can do activity number 1 after you've gone through the whole screencast and take your quiz. And I'll see you in class.